childish, that was idiotic, all those type of words. I regret doing that, and I apologize to him for doing that.
Kevin Durant recently issued a public apology after a burner account linked to him was exposed, revealing harsh comments about teammates such as Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and even former Golden State Warriors stars. What began as what seemed like a private rant quickly spilled into the public eye and the locker room, raising serious questions about what actually happened behind closed doors that ultimately forced Durant to apologize. For most of his career, Kevin Durant has carried a reputation that felt almost split in two. On the court, he was nearly untouchable, a 7-foot scorer with the agility of a guard, a smooth jumper defenders couldn't reach, and a lethal scoring instinct that made him one of the most feared offensive players in NBA history. Coaches called him impossible to guard, teammates described him as a once-in-a-generation talent, and analysts routinely placed him among the greatest scorers the sport had ever seen. Off the court, however, the perception of Durant was far more complicated. He wasn't the loud, charismatic superstar who thrived in front of cameras or delivered polished, media-trained sound bites. Instead, he was quieter, more introspective, and, according to many fans and analysts, unusually sensitive to criticism. And that criticism never really stopped. Every major decision he made was debated, every playoff loss was dissected, and every quote was analyzed. With the rise of social media, that criticism expanded far beyond television panels and newspaper columns. It was everywhere, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and in endless comment sections. The feedback was constant, immediate, and impossible to escape. Unlike many other superstars, Durant didn't simply ignore it. He read the comments, followed the debates, and sometimes even joined them. That habit eventually led to one of the strangest controversies of his entire career. It had nothing to do with a missed shot, a bad playoff series, or a heated locker room confrontation. Instead, it centered on Twitter, and more specifically, on accounts that were never supposed to belong to him. At some point, the internet uncovered a shocking truth. Kevin Durant hadn't just been reading the criticism about his career, he had been secretly responding to it, using burner accounts to defend himself and argue with fans. And when he was later confronted about it, he didn't deny the reasoning behind his actions.
I wanted to be stealth. I didn't want nobody to know that was me.
That admission would go on to become one of the most defining moments of Kevin Durant's public image. But the story didn't begin with a confession. It started with a decision that had already placed him under intense scrutiny. In 2016, Durant made one of the most controversial moves in modern sports history. After losing to the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, he shocked the basketball world by joining them the very next season. At the time, the Warriors were already a dominant force, fresh off a historic 73-win campaign. By joining such an elite team, Durant effectively created what many fans and analysts viewed as an unstoppable super team. To some, it was a smart career move, a player choosing the best possible situation to win championships. But to others, it felt like a betrayal of competition. Instead of trying to defeat the Warriors, Durant had joined them, and that choice quickly overshadowed everything else he accomplished. The criticism was relentless. Every time Durant posted online, the same arguments flooded his replies. He couldn't win on his own. He needed a super team. He took the easy way out. His championships wouldn't count the same. Most superstars would have ignored the noise, but Durant didn't, he responded. At first, he did so from his main account. But over time, he began using alternate profiles, anonymous accounts that didn't carry the weight of his global identity. These burner accounts allowed him to argue freely, without the pressure of being Kevin Durant. For a while, the burners remained a secret. Then one day, he forgot to switch accounts. Instead of replying from a burner, Durant accidentally responded to a critic from his official, verified Twitter profile. In that single moment, everything unraveled. Fans immediately noticed that the tone and arguments matched those of a previously anonymous account that had been defending Durant and criticizing his former team. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Sports networks covered it. Talk shows debated it. Fans turned it into memes and running jokes. It wasn't just a superstar arguing online, it was a superstar secretly arguing while pretending to be someone else. And the tweets themselves only made things worse. They included sharp criticism of former teammates and pointed comments about the organization he had just left. It didn't come across as a strategic defense of his career choices. It felt emotional. It felt personal. And to many, it felt embarrassing. For a player long seen as quiet and reserved, the revelation was shocking. It exposed a side of Durant that fans weren't used to seeing. Someone who read every comment and cared deeply about public perception. But just when the controversy began to fade from the headlines, another alleged burner account surfaced years later, and this time, the situation felt even more uncomfortable. Screenshots began circulating online, showing posts from an account allegedly linked to Durant. According to reports, the account wasn't just defending him anymore. It was openly criticizing teammates, coaches, and entire team situations, reigniting controversy and raising fresh questions about what was really happening behind the scenes.
Earlier today, Kevin Durant's alleged burner account on Twitter was exposed, where he was trash-talking former and current teammates.
That alone was enough to ignite controversy. But what made the situation even more uncomfortable was where those conversations were taking place. These weren't public debates or heated exchanges with well-known critics. Instead, they were happening inside private group chats with random Twitter users, behind closed digital doors, away from public view.
It wasn't even with friends or other teammates or anything. It was just random Twitter accounts that he was in a group chat with.
That detail completely changed the tone of the story. This wasn't just Durant clapping back at internet trolls anymore. It was Durant venting about people he actually worked with, hiding behind a digital mask, and sharing those frustrations with strangers online. For fans, that felt different. It felt more personal, more uncomfortable. Now, the situation wasn't simply about online arguments. It had become a question of locker room trust. And as those screenshots spread rapidly across social media, cameras captured Durant at the All-Star game, glued to his phone while the controversy exploded across the internet in real time.
This was him at All-Star game today.
That image quickly became symbolic of the entire situation. One of the greatest players in the world sitting at the All-Star game, scrolling through his phone while the internet debated whether he had been secretly criticizing teammates through burner accounts. By that point, the narrative had already taken hold. Fans weren't just discussing the tweets anymore. They were debating what they revealed about Kevin Durant as a person. Some found it embarrassing. Others thought it was relatable. A few even admired the honesty behind it. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing. It was strange. Superstars weren't supposed to argue with random fans. They weren't supposed to hide behind fake accounts. And they definitely weren't supposed to get caught. Now, Kevin Durant had. And suddenly, the story wasn't just about tweets. It was about perception, reputation, and how one of the most gifted players in the world was seen when he stepped off the court. If Durant was willing to say those things anonymously online, what did that mean for the people around him in real life? That question would drive the backlash that followed. Once the burner account story became public, it didn't simply trend for a few hours and fade away. It exploded across the sports world with a speed only modern social media scandals can generate. What began as a strange discovery quickly turned into a full-scale media event. Within a single news cycle, the story had jumped from Twitter threads to national sports coverage. Television analysts debated it during halftime shows. Radio hosts joked about it on morning programs. Podcasts dedicated entire episodes to breaking it down. And across social media, the story took on a life of its own. Every major sports account was talking about it. Every fan page had an opinion. Within hours, Kevin Durant burner account became one of the most searched basketball topics online. The story spread so quickly because it had everything needed to capture attention. A global superstar, secret accounts, leaked screenshots, and the uncomfortable realization that one of the greatest players in the world had been arguing with anonymous users online. But what truly turned the situation from a strange social media moment into a serious controversy wasn't just the existence of the burner accounts. It was what they allegedly contained. According to circulating screenshots and reports, the accounts weren't only defending Durant from critics. They were openly criticizing teammates, complaining about team situations, and comparing franchises in ways that felt deeply personal. Some of the comments appeared to take shots at players he had shared the court with. Others reflected frustration about team directions and organizational decisions. Suddenly, what might have been dismissed as a strange online habit began to look like something far more serious. The narrative shifted from social media drama to potential locker room conflict. In professional sports, especially at the highest level, locker room chemistry is everything. Teams are built on trust. Players need to believe their teammates support them. Coaches rely on commitment and unity. Fans expect their superstars to represent the organization with professionalism. Now, that trust seemed fragile. Fans began asking uncomfortable questions. Who exactly was Durant talking about? Did his teammates know? How would they feel if they saw the screenshots? Was this simple online frustration, or did it reflect deeper issues behind the scenes? The conversation quickly shifted away from the tweets themselves and toward what they represented. People weren't just debating social media behavior anymore. They were questioning Durant's character, leadership, and role inside the locker room. Was he unhappy? Was he frustrated with his teammates? Was he the kind of leader a championship team needed? As always, the internet moved faster than the truth. Memes flooded social media almost instantly. Fans joked about Durant arguing with himself online. Some claimed that any anonymous account defending him must secretly belong to him. Others joked that criticizing Durant might lead to debating him without even realizing it. Even harmless moments became part of the joke. If Durant checked his phone during a game or public event, fans joked that he was arguing with trolls in real time. If he tweeted anything, replies instantly asked whether it was really him or one of his burners. The story had become a permanent punchline. And once a narrative like that takes hold, it becomes incredibly difficult to escape. It doesn't just live on social media. It begins shaping how people interpret everything a player does. Durant wasn't only the unstoppable scorer anymore. He wasn't just the finals MVP or generational talent. He was now known as the superstar with burner accounts. That label followed him everywhere, in interviews, comment sections, and analyst debates. Even when the focus was supposed to be basketball, the burner accounts always resurfaced. It became part of his public identity, whether he liked it or not. But then Durant did something few expected. Instead of denying everything or claiming the story was fabricated, he admitted the truth. He acknowledged that he had used burner accounts.
If you're questioning what I'm doing, then shit, why not get it from the source?
That short, simple admission instantly changed the entire tone of the conversation. It erased any remaining doubt. This was no longer speculation or rumor. Kevin Durant himself had confirmed that he used burner accounts. But when he explained why he used them, his reasoning sounded very different from how the public had been interpreting the situation.
These people that I might be shitting on sometimes, they enjoy these interactions.
From Durant's perspective, he wasn't trolling. He wasn't hiding out of insecurity. He believed he was simply engaging with fans directly. In his mind, those interactions were part of the modern sports world, where social media had erased much of the distance between athletes and their audience. He didn't view it as a scandal. He saw it as communication.
But I happen to take it a little too far, and that's what happens sometimes when I get into these basketball debates.
To Durant, those conversations weren't embarrassing. They were simply part of the experience. Fans debated players constantly, and he felt there was nothing wrong with responding directly. In fact, he believed it helped grow the game by creating more authentic interactions between players and fans. But the public didn't see it that way. To most people, it didn't look like authenticity. It looked like insecurity. It looked like one of the greatest players in the world struggling to handle criticism without hiding behind a fake account. Once that narrative took hold, it spread everywhere. Sports media began analyzing Durant's personality more than his performance. Discussions about him started including words like sensitive, thin-skinned, and too online. The burner account saga became a permanent part of his public image. And in professional sports, perception matters almost as much as performance. Even if Durant's teammates never confronted him directly, the story created an awkward atmosphere. The idea that a superstar might be criticizing teammates anonymously online is the kind of rumor that lingers, even when no one talks about it openly. It creates doubt. It creates tension. It raises uncomfortable questions. And for a player who had already faced heavy criticism for joining a super team, the burner controversy added another complicated layer to the public narrative surrounding his career. He wasn't just the player who left Oklahoma City. He wasn't just the player who joined the Warriors. Now, he was also the superstar who argued with fans from secret accounts. That combination reshaped how people talked about him. Even when he dominated on the court, the conversation often drifted back to the same topic. The jokes didn't stop. The memes didn't fade. And the story refused to disappear. It followed him from team to team, season to season, interview to interview. Anytime he tweeted, people questioned whether it was really him. Anytime he responded to criticism, fans brought up the burners. Anytime a rumor surfaced, jokes spread that he must be behind it. Eventually, the only way to move past the controversy was to confront it directly, without filters, without anonymity, and without hiding behind a screen. Durant had to address it publicly, as himself, with no digital mask and no secret profile. And when that moment finally came, it would define how the entire story was remembered. Because the apology was coming. By the time Kevin Durant finally spoke openly about the burner account controversy, the situation had already taken on a life of its own. Screenshots had spread across every corner of the internet. Sports talk shows had spent days dissecting the story. Memes had flooded Twitter and Instagram. The phrase, Kevin Durant burner account, had become part of everyday basketball conversation. At that point, the damage went far beyond the tweets themselves. It was about the perception that had formed around him. For most of his career, Durant's identity had been simple. The silent assassin, the unstoppable scorer, the player who let his game speak louder than his words. Even his most controversial decisions were still framed through basketball, rings, efficiency, legacy, greatness. But the burner account saga changed all of that. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just about performance. It was about personality. He wasn't just Kevin Durant, the generational talent. He was Kevin Durant, the superstar who argued with fans from secret accounts. And that label stuck. It followed him into interviews. It showed up in comment sections. It echoed through debates and discussions. Every tweet he posted was dissected. Every response he gave was met with jokes about burners. Whenever his name trended, fans wondered if another anonymous account was involved. The story had become bigger than the original mistake. Eventually, Durant had no choice but to address it head-on, not from a burner account, not through a cryptic tweet, but face-to-face, in front of cameras, with no hidden identity. And when that moment finally arrived, the tone was noticeably different from the defensive or sarcastic replies fans had grown used to online. This time, Durant didn't argue. He didn't deflect. He didn't pretend the situation had been misunderstood. Instead, he admitted that he had taken things too far.
Well, that was childish, that was idiotic, all those type of words I regret doing that, and I apologize to him for doing that.
That admission alone was unexpected. For years, Durant had built a reputation for pushing back against criticism. He challenged media narratives, debated fans, and openly defended his decisions. But this time, he wasn't defending himself. He was acknowledging that his behavior had crossed a line. He explained that while he genuinely enjoyed interacting with fans and discussing basketball online, the situation had escalated in ways he never intended. What began as simple debates slowly turned into comments about people he had worked with directly. And that, he admitted, was where he went wrong. Then came the statement that would define the entire controversy. Those words carried weight because they came directly from him. He wasn't responding to a league statement or reading from a carefully crafted PR script. He spoke plainly, using words that left little room for interpretation, admitting his actions had been childish, even idiotic, and apologizing directly to the people involved. It was a rare moment of vulnerability from a player who had spent years defending himself against public criticism. He didn't blame the media. He didn't blame the fans. He didn't claim his words had been taken out of context. He owned it. And in doing so, he changed the tone of the entire conversation. Up until that point, the burner account story had felt like a spectacle. Easy to laugh at, easy to turn into jokes, easy to frame as a superstar acting immaturely online. But when Durant admitted that he was upset with himself and acknowledged he had crossed a line, the situation became human. He wasn't just a superstar caught in a scandal. He was a person who had reacted emotionally, made a mistake, and regretted it. He even revealed that the previous day had been difficult for him, explaining that he had been frustrated with himself over the situation. That detail highlighted an important truth. This wasn't just a controversy happening around him. It was something affecting him personally. Then he outlined what he planned to do moving forward. That statement felt like a turning point. Instead of continuing to engage in online debates, instead of defending himself through tweets or anonymous accounts, Durant chose to step back and let his game do the talking again. For many fans, that was exactly what they wanted to hear. Despite all the controversy, Durant's talent had never been in question. He was still one of the most dominant scorers in the league, capable of taking over games in ways very few players could. He remained a central figure in the NBA's landscape. But the burner account saga had changed how people saw him. It revealed a side of Durant that fans weren't used to seeing. A side that cared deeply about public perception, a side that read the comments, a side that sometimes responded emotionally instead of strategically. That humanized him, whether he intended it or not. Some fans saw the controversy as embarrassing, a superstar unable to handle criticism. Others saw something different. Proof that even elite athletes experience the same emotional reactions as everyone else. In a strange way, it made Durant more relatable. Behind the championships, scoring titles, and highlight reels was a player who felt frustration, reacted, and occasionally made mistakes, just like the fans debating him online. Yet it also made him more vulnerable to scrutiny. Once the internet creates a narrative, it tends to stick. For Durant, the burner account story became one of those permanent talking points. Years later, the jokes still resurface. Anytime he responds to criticism online, fans bring up the burners. Anytime a rumor spreads, people joke that it came from one of his secret accounts. It became part of his public image, whether he liked it or not. But the important thing is that it never defined his performance. Durant continued to dominate on the court. He kept scoring, made all-star teams, and reminded everyone why he's considered one of the greatest players of his generation. The controversy didn't take away his talent. It didn't erase his championships. It didn't change how defenders struggled to guard him night after night. If anything, it added another layer to his story. The burner account saga revealed something unusual about a superstar. Behind the trophies and accolades was a player who cared about his public image, a player who read the comments, sometimes responded, and occasionally regretted it. But in the end, he owned it. He admitted he went too far, called his actions childish, apologized, and then did what great players always do. He moved forward. In the NBA, controversies come and go. Narratives change. Headlines fade. But the game never stops. Seasons keep rolling. New stories replace old ones. And in the middle of it all, players still have to step onto the court and perform. Kevin Durant did exactly that. He kept playing, kept scoring, and kept proving why, regardless of burner accounts, internet debates, or media narratives. He is still one of the most unstoppable players the sport has ever seen. If you enjoyed this video, click on any of the cards on your screen for more.